All right, let's bring on our panel to talk a little bit more about this and the president's response today. Republican strategist Spencer Sullivan is back. It has been a while since we've seen you here. And Democratic strategist Maurice Simpson, he's here as well. Good to see you both.
Thank you. Happy to be on.
All right, so here we are talking about Roseanne. The president sounded off today on this, really didn't say anything about the comments, but ABC should apologize to him as well.
Yeah, I think what you see from President Trump here is nothing new. It's his typical response to some type of crisis, some type of situation. I think Ambien had the best response here. They said, you know,
right.
There's no side effects. You know, racism is not a side effect of one of our products. It just kind of it happens. So I think that's one of it. I think what President Trump here is doing is calling attention to something that's in his wheelhouse. Which could be perceived as the media bias. You could talk about Jamil Hill, you could talk about Keith Olbermann, you could talk about Kathy Griffin. He's playing to his wheelhouse, he's playing to his base, and that's what's going on here. Obviously, the statements were horrendous, absolutely horrific, and I think what you saw here as well was a very swift action by ABC. And something I've noticed in the past couple of years is organizations, consumers are putting organizations and businesses that they support, that they endorse, that they utilize to the task of being a little bit more proactive at the crossroads of like politics and culture, right? And I think there's a lot of organizations like we saw at Starbucks yesterday with the training in response to the incident in Philadelphia in that response, right? So I think organizations, businesses are facing these crossroads between culture and politics more so than ever.
But I think the president has a big base there, and he's talking to a lot of people. Let's first listen to what Sarah Huckabee Sanders had to say when she was asked about the president's tweet this morning.
I'm not aware of any conversations that have taken place. The president simply calling out the media bias. No one's defending what she said. The president is the president of all Americans, and he's focused on doing what is best for our country.
Maurice, there are some critics who say that the president's rhetoric from the campaign up until now has sort of brought these kind of conversations or these kind of comments. I'm not saying that he made Roseanne tweet what she tweeted, but that it sort of emboldened or brought about this sort of behavior that we've seen all over. What's your response to that?
I mean, I agree. Well, first, I think this is in true Trump fashion, where he's just being a kid and like making this all about himself. But the reality is that his rhetoric over time have made people feel more comfortable with using their racist voices louder instead of using their indoor voices. They feel comfortable using their outside voices, and that's just unacceptable. And so I do thank ABC for their swift action. Because of his rhetoric, we have to take a hard line in saying that this is not acceptable. And like Spencer said, consumers are doing that through their pockets, through their viewership, and are walking away from these negative comments and negative conversation.
So look, we can keep talking about Roseanne, but there's a lot more important issues in this country right now, so let's get to that. One has been the ongoing investigation involving Michael Cohen. Some new information coming down today, something about recordings, were there recordings that may or may not involve President Trump. Michael Cohen is not necessarily acquitted himself, I would imagine, in the way the president would have hoped, because whether he was taking payments or not for access to the president. Is this going to be a major headache for the White House, or is this a Michael Cohen problem?
I think this is a Michael Cohen problem. I think this is great for SNL and then the skits they do, which I love to watch. But this is also a PR stunt by Michael Avenatti, who loves to see himself in cable news. He's a PR guy. He's an attorney. But let's face it, he's been on more cable news than Rudy Giuliani.
We should point out today, too, Kimball Wood, the judge, had said, you know, she called him on it.
And then he withdrew from the case. So I'm an attorney who withdrew from the case, rather spend his time on cable news. Obviously, he tells what his outcome wants to be.
Got a comment on that?
I mean, he's learned a lot from the president, and so he's taking advantage of his free media. But I do think this poses a problem for the presidency as well. We see that things are getting closer to him as things get to his inner circle. Whether it's Jeff Sessions or this Cohen and all these attorneys. Trump. The wall's closing in on him.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm happy you brought up Jeff Sessions. I think there's a lot going on, and with everything going on, I think the more distracts from all the headlines that have been made. I mean, we're making some progress with North Korea. Unemployment's at all-time low. ISIS has been decimated. We're still making some progress in prison reform, right? We're not completely there yet. House passed it, Senate's working on it. So there's a lot of good things going on in this country.
Sure.
Michael Cohen, I think, and Michael Avenatti is just a distraction.
But let me ask you about Sessions, because you brought it up, and the president tweeted about Jeff Sessions. So if that's a distraction, he's the one who was tweeting this morning, saying he's not even sure that he should have, you know, picked him to be the attorney general now.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I think President Trump is frustrated on two things here. One is the fact that if he knew Jeff Sessions was going to recuse himself, then he would have appointed someone else. It's the right thing that Jeff Sessions did. I mean, he cited legal precedent, right move. But if I was going to appoint someone and I wanted them to oversee a major task in the upcoming year or so, for them to recuse himself, I would have felt a little bit frustrated, because I want someone that I appoint, or President Trump to appoint, or any president to appoint, to be advocating on my behalf, right? Then I think what you see here is the other second frustration, which is a investigation which has shown no collusion whatsoever for the ongoing year between President Trump and Russia.
So Spencer mentioned about some of the things that are happening. The president's talked a lot about capturing ISIS, unemployment, things along those lines too. A lot of the things that is mentioned brought to the forefront about Jeff Sessions, and let's be honest, the Roseanne stuff today, which had he condemned the remarks, I don't think there would be this back and forth about it. How much of this do you think, Maurice, is inflicted by the president himself, and would you at least give him credit for certain accomplishments in the country? You know, I know he's trumpeting the tax code, the tax reform, things like that.
I mean, I think it's important to recognize, you know, that the country is moving forward. However, when and character of our community is not doing well, and you see what we'll see is the conscience of the American people really coming forward on a lot of these issues. And so it is a distraction. We can't get to the good work of the American people when we have a president who is constantly tweeting like a child, who is inciting you know, racial slurs throughout the country. So it's not fair.
Is he inciting racial slurs?
I think he has provided an atmosphere where people feel more comfortable exposing you know, what was at least once something that was kept inside.
Inside boys. Just as long as we draw the line right there. I think it's important just to draw that line. By the way, we just got the wrap, but I just want to say very quickly, had Roseanne Barr sang the national anthem the way she did 20 years ago, how do you think President Trump would have responded? I think we know. We'll leave it at that.